From the Blitzkrieg's earliest days to the brutal Eastern Front, one light tank played a role far greater than its designers ever imagined, often overlooked in favor of its more famous cousins, the Panther and the Tiger. The Panzer II was the unassuming workhorse that helped build the foundations of the Wehrmacht's early victories. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on this pivotal piece of military history. The story of the Panzer II begins in the mid-1930s. Germany, secretly rearming in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles, needed a stopgap tank. The Panzer I, armed only with machine guns, was purely a training vehicle. A more substantial tank, the Panzer III, was still under development. To fill this crucial gap, the Panzer KMPF Wagon II was born. It was designed as an interim solution, a step up from the Panzer I, intended primarily for reconnaissance and training. Its main armament was a 20mm KWK-30 autocannon, capable of firing high-explosive and armor-piercing rounds. While this cannon was a significant improvement over machine guns, it was never intended to take on other tanks head-to-head. Alongside the cannon was a 7.92mm MG-34 machine gun, a standard for German infantry and vehicles. The tank's armor was light, ranging from just 5 to 14.5mm in early models. This was enough to protect its three-man crew, a commander gunner, a driver, and a radio operator, loaded from small arms fire and shell splinters. But it left the Panzer II dangerously vulnerable to dedicated anti-tank weapons and even heavy machine guns. Powered by a Maybach gasoline engine, the Panzer II was relatively nimble for its time, with a top speed of around 40 km per hour, or 25 miles per hour. Its suspension system and relatively low weight made it agile, perfect for the reconnaissance role it was designed for. It was a simple, reliable machine, easy to produce and maintain, which was exactly what the rapidly expanding German army needed quick. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, the Panzer II was the most numerous tank in the German arsenal. Over 1,000 Panzer II South rolled across the Polish plains, forming the backbone of the Panzer divisions. Here, its 20mm cannon proved surprisingly effective against Poland's lightly armored tankets and older tank models. The speed and shock of the German advance, the core of Blitzkrieg tactics, meant the Panzer II South often overwhelmed defenders before they could mount an effective response. They weren't slugging it out in protracted duels. They were exploiting breakthroughs, cutting communication lines, and sowing chaos in the enemy's rear. The following year, during the invasion of France in the Low Countries, the Panzer II once again played a vital part. Alongside the Panzer I, III, and IV, it formed the steel spearhead that pierced the Ardennes forest, while the French and British fielded tanks with superior armor and firepower, like the Charby I and the Matilda II. German tactical doctrine made all the difference. The Panzer at the second speed was its greatest asset. It scouted ahead, screened the flanks of the heavier panzers, and engaged softer targets. However, the Battle of France also exposed the Panzer II's critical weaknesses. Its 20mm cannon was woefully inadequate against the thick armor of the Allied heavy tanks. Panzer II crews often had to rely on speed, flanking maneuvers, or calling for support from heavier tanks or Stuka dive bombers to deal with these threats. It became clear that the Panzer II's time as a frontline combat tank was coming to an end. Production had already been shifted towards the more capable Panzer III and IV. Despite its obsolescence, the Panzer II's story was far from over. It was sent to the deserts of North Africa with Rommel's Afrika Korps. In the vast open expanses of the desert, its reconnaissance capabilities were invaluable. The heat and sand were punishing on all machines, but the reliable Panzer II performed admirably in scouting roles, though it struggled mightily against British cruiser and infantry tanks. The true test of its limits came in 1941 with Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. The Wehrmacht encountered the Soviet T-34 and KV-1 tanks, and the world of armored warfare changed overnight. The Panzer II South 20mm cannon shells simply bounced off the sloped armor of the T-34. It was completely and utterly outclassed. For the crews inside these light tanks, facing a T-34 was a terrifying, often fatal experience. Relegated from the front lines, the Panzer II found new life. Its reliable chassis proved to be a versatile platform for a variety of other vehicles. Many were converted into self-propelled artillery pieces. The most famous of these was the Wespe, which mounted a 10.5cm howitzer on a modified Panzer II chassis. These vehicles provided crucial mobile fire support for the infantry and panzer divisions until the very end of the war. Another significant conversion was the Marder II, a tank destroyer. By mounting a powerful 7.5cm anti-tank gun onto the Panzer II chassis, the Germans created a potent mobile weapon capable of knocking out most Allied and Soviet tanks at a distance. It was a classic example of German wartime ingenuity, turning an obsolete tank into an effective tank killer. Even the standard Panzer II continued to serve in secondary roles long after it left frontline combat. They were used for anti-partisan duties in occupied territories, for security on rear lines, and for training new panzer crews. The Lux variant, a dedicated reconnaissance version with improved speed and suspension, was produced in small numbers and served on both the eastern and western fronts. Looking back, the Panzer II was the right tank at the right time. It filled a critical gap in Germany's armored forces during a period of rapid expansion and doctrinal development. It allowed German crews to practice and perfect the blitzkrieg tactics that would stun the world in 1939 and 1940. While it was never a technological marvel or a battlefield behemoth, its contribution was immense. It was the dependable, if underpowered, workhorse that carried the Panzer divisions through their initial, stunning victories. The Panzer, the second's journey from a frontline tank to a versatile support chassis, tells a fascinating story of adaptation and necessity in wartime. It's a reminder that in war, it's not always the biggest or most powerful weapon that makes the difference, but the one that gets the job done when it's needed most. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Panzer II. If you enjoyed this journey into military history, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more documentaries like this. Let us know in the comments which piece of military hardware you'd like to see us cover next. Until then, thanks for watching.